Cool.
Yeah, that's the story with my operation.
Now the next one, I remember when you tell me, hey Steve, I'm gonna go pick up a MAME pinball.
Yeah.
I'm like, what pinball? And then I look online, I'm like, there's no pinball named MAME. And then I'm like, oh, you mean MAME as in thing? And I'm like, what the hell is he talking about? So this one, and I know when I first came down, the first thing I was drawn to is this, and you're right. Give a breakdown, I mean, how you came to be, but how it works as well, because I've never online seen anyone, and mind you, I haven't been looking, but, you know, that has a MAME pinball. Tell me, well, what's it called? Is that what it's called?
Well, it's MAME really is what it's called, and I'll be honest with you, Steve, I was never a pinball guy. I've never been. I remember playing pinball back in, you know, the early 90s when I used to vacation Ocean City, New Jersey with my parents, and I remember going into the boardwalk, one of the boardwalk arcades at the time, and they had a Theater of Magic. And I remember just being drawn to the game. And, you know, I'll show you a couple of things here. For example, one of the neat things that I found very, very funny was if you hit the start button without a quarter, the game tells you, or asks you for a ticket. As in?
Ticket, please.
Which is quite funny.
Right.
The music, you know, I'll just start up a quick game here so you can hear the sounds. Start button.
Right.
So the whole sound, the whole theme, the graphics, the illusions, and having a whole theater illusion, if you will, theme thing going on really drew me to the game. So, you know, I played a lot of it as a kid, and I've always had a special, you know, place for Theater of Magic. The problem is, the pinball hobby has gotten very expensive. Now, my friend Mike Wong, Mikey, if you're watching this, I owe a lot to you for, you know, helping me with my Street Fighter machine, and also, you know, for the Shinobi machine, and more so, you know, the pin MAME. My friend Mike got into the pinball hobby a few years back, and he always told me, he said he has a Theater of Magic, which I've played many, many times at his house. And he told me, he said, Sergio, once you experience different pinball machines, different tables, you'll understand why Theater of Magic isn't the, you know, the end-all be-all of pinball games. And I never really understood that, because to me, pinball has always been Theater of Magic, nothing else. So over the years, as he's gotten to grow his collection, I've played a lot of different games. Medieval Madness, I played Congo, I played Indianapolis 500, I played Star Trek. But I want to own one, but I don't have the money. It's just impossible. They're very, very expensive. So my friend Mike started building this pin MAME a few years ago, but never got to finish it. So we ended up connecting a little while ago, and ended up talking, and he said, listen, I want to buy another pinball machine, I need space, I'm thinking of selling pin MAME. And he says, oh, well, so we started talking, and I said, listen, what do you want for the machine, right? He says, well, you know, I've got a lot, you know, put into it, you know, I spent about $1,500, you know, building it. It's still not finished. I'm still going to have to refine a few things. And that's where we started talking, and I said, you know what? I want to buy it. So he finished setting everything up for me. I had to sell off a few of my games to make space for it and to free up the funds, which I don't regret. I went to pick it up, and I've been in love ever since. And he teases me every day when I'm going to buy my first pinball machine, and I will buy my first pinball machine at some point, because I'm just drawn to the whole pinball experience. And this particular machine is amazing in the sense that it has 277 tables.
Wow.
You're able to...
Wow, look at that.
Yeah, so it's changing on its own. Here's Terminator, one of the Terminator 2s, you know, in the machine. It's just, it gives you really an abundance of variety, you know, to try, and essentially filter out the ones that you do like and don't like, so when you go buy the real machine, you know what to expect. Like, I'm a huge Congo fan. I know this is going to sound funny, because let me just flip through Congo here, and, you know, Mikey is going to get a kick out of this if he's watching this. Congo was one of those titles that I laughed at him. When I went to his house and I played Congo, I go, what is this Reeker? I said, what is this thing here, Congo? And he says, Congo is a pretty cool game. I mean, you know, the movie came out in, I think, 95. It was a very cheesy movie, which I have, by the way. I watched it. And he's right. But the whole theme to it, the jungle theme, the gorillas, you know, the voices, the music, really drew me to the game. And I've fallen in love with Congo. So when I found out that I could play Congo, not in this real form, but in a digital form, but still have that feel, I mean, it's a no-brainer. So I got it, I brought it home, I played the crap out of it like pretty much every night before I go to bed, and it's amazing how, even though it's not mechanically the real thing, it is so competitive, because you sit here, you know, and you have a high score, or you want to beat, or you have a bad game, and you instantly, you know, like drop another couple of credits and want to try to have a good game, because that's what pinball is all about. Sometimes you have good games, sometimes, you know, not so good. So, you know, everyone loves it. You know, they come over. You don't need to be a pinball wizard to get into it. You just drop a couple credits, select your table, play. You know, it's, as Mike explained it, he's the one that built the machine. The hardest part about building something like this isn't necessarily the hardware. The hardware is, it's a computer with high-end graphics cards and monitors. The difficult part is the software. And that's where Mike spent a lot of days and nights trying to configure, and he's been nice enough to actually display his work online via tutorials to show people, you know, how to do it and what sort of hardware, you know, you need to run. And, you know, he's kind of like my guru, you know, go-to guy, if you will. And I told him, I said, this machine will sit with me for, you know, as long as I live, because I absolutely love the darn thing. I can never get rid of it. And now I'm finding amazing tables that I enjoy playing, and the last table that I'll ever play is Theater of Magic. So, I guess, Mikey, you were right all along. You know, I gotta apologize, but that's kind of the story behind Pin Meme, and you know, and everyone that sees it wants one. You know, because having the real thing is great, but sometimes you're strapped for space. You don't have the space. Right. You know, this is where it kind of comes in. So, you know, that's pretty much it. That's the story behind Pin Meme and what that's all about. Was it expensive? I know that maybe because, you know, Mike's your buddy, and I don't want to get into his time because that's invaluable, but was it expensive? Like, if someone's like, hey, I want to build that based on space or just have a MAME, how much would it cost? Like, if you said, all right, Steve, instead of getting the ones you want, just do this setup, how much would this cost me to either make or have Mike or whoever make one for me? Well, is it a lot? Yeah, I mean, it's you know, kind of a tricky question, because I know that he gave me a good deal on it. Essentially what I paid for was basically the cabinet and all the hardware in it. Like, you know, and you can tell the graphics cards in the computer were pretty expensive. His time, I mean, there's no dollar value you can put on someone's time. But essentially, I think even he said it himself, if you were to build something like this, I mean, you got to throw at least like $2,000 into it. And that's just to play it safe, right? Now, he was nice enough to wire the machine up with, you know, connectors to, you know, to feed, you know, rumble motors, you know, to get that real feel and everything. But he brought up a good point. He said, Sergio, you can spend another $500 on the motors, but you're going to have to configure the software, and it's never going to give you the real feel. You know, it's still a digital machine, no matter which way you look at it. So, you know, I think there's people out there selling theirs for $3,000, $4,000, $5,000. I think it's, you know, ludicrous. You know, I just wouldn't pay that kind of money. But I think, you know, to expect to build one for less than $2,000 is also a little bit unrealistic. Right. Because of, obviously, the cabinet costs money, and the TV costs money, and computers cost money. So everything together, you know, you're going to spend anywhere between $1,500 and $2,000. So, but, you know, you gotta. It seems like a lot of money, but when you take that aside and you throw the fun factor into it, once you start playing it, you easily forget about the money. Well, it's a lot of value. I mean, when you're just showing us, there's so many games, and again, I want to try some later on. For sure. You know, and so how does this work? So this what we're looking is a TV screen, right? This is what a 37-inch? It's a 37-inch TV screen. So you can go through, you know, the different games. I'll play one really quickly for you. So this is the neat thing about this. I'm going to play an old Cosmic Princess, whatever the heck this thing is. And you can see on the back glass here, you've got little mechanical scores, if you will, right? So you can see here there's a little bit of a digital thing kind of going on. So as you drop a credit, you'll see here, and it shows as 1. Oh, wow. Just like the real deal. Interesting. So now when you launch the ball, well, hold on. It would be a good idea if I push the start button first. You can see the credit, so we have no more credit. We're on ball number 2, just like the real thing. You launch the ball, and you can see the score actually changing up there on the scoreboard.
That's cool.
As it would change in the real machine. And you can listen to all the sounds.
That's really neat.
So that's pretty much it. And when you do want to try another game, you hit the exit button, you click the launch button, and then you circle through the different machines. You know, here's a Valley Screecher from the Black Lagoon 3D. And, you know, it goes through all sorts of different themes. One of my favorites, I have to say, I also made fun of Mike for this particular title, which I thought was very, very cheesy. And now I find that it's one of my favorites, and that's Indianapolis 500. Just go through it here. And let's see, this one here. You can see how amazing the table looks. Very crystal clear, and a lot of fun to play. This one here, I'm still trying to kick its ass, but you know, I can't beat the high score. It always gets me, but it's a lot of fun to play. So, you know, the value in something like this is really, you can't put it all.
I agree with you. I mean, okay, so obviously this is an LCD. Yeah. This is the what would be the DMD? What is that? So that's a reflecting?
Yeah, so that's basically, so what Mike decided to do is, because the pinball cabinet style is a bit different than most traditional machines, like what this is called is a Williams 2000 machine. So Williams 2000 was basically the last cabinet style, the last arcade, I guess, pinball style machine created before they decided to close the doors back in the, I think, 99. And the whole concept behind the Williams 2000 was incorporating a mechanical playfield, but with the illusion of holographic, I guess, images sitting at the very back here. So as you're playing Star Wars, you can see all these holograms kind of over hovering, you know, the playfield, and giving you this illusion. So Mike decided to buy this style cabinet because he wanted to do something a little bit different with the DMD. So essentially what this is you're looking at the TV as a playfield, you're looking at a computer monitor or TV, if you will, for the back glass, but underneath here is a third monitor mounted basically diagonally, and it gives you the illusion of the scoreboard actually being far at basically at the end of the cabinet, but it's really reflecting off of the back glass.
Interesting.
So when you're playing, you never take your eyes off of the playfield because you could see the scoreboard.
That's really cool.
So
that's smart of him.
It's very smart, yeah. So, you know, it definitely adds a lot of depth to it. But yeah, it's definitely one of my favorites. And like I said, just for the fact that you have so many different tables. You know, a lot of it is some of the older stuff. Again, like this is probably 50s, if you will. Jack's Open, you know, that sort of thing. And there's all sorts of you know, different tables here. Judge Dredd, which is another great underrated pinball table. Jurassic Park. I mean, we can go on and on and on, right?
Wow, you're saying, and now can you add more games as the years progress?
You can. The only thing to keep in mind is that this particular, you know, software that Mike installed in the machine pertains to a certain style of games, meaning that certain titles will play within this particular software.
Right.
If you start to add a lot of new stuff that's not compatible with the software, then, you know, it can create certain problems. But it's very cool, and you know what? I got to show you something, because this to me. I have to say, I don't even know what year this pertains to, but this has got to be like 30s or 40s. If anyone out there on YouTube knows, you know, which or what year this game came out, please, you know, post so. This is actually quite incredible because there's no flippers. It's called line drift, and you have to try to hit. Here's your baseball bat, so you control. Basically, the flippers control the baseball bat. So the left. Well, let's backtrack here. Let's put in a credit. And this is quite amusing. So you press the left flipper to pitch the ball, and then the right to hit the baseball bat.
Oh, neat!
And you have to try to hit these targets up here, double, out, and single.
That's
and then you can tell basically, you know. There's your score. If you hit a grand slam, you know, basically the ball. It's, you know, the inning down here, you know, 1 or 2 players. And the first time I saw this, I started laughing. I said, this has to be one of the cheesiest tables I've ever seen. But having played it, I have to say it's one of the most fun. And
it's different, definitely different, yeah.
And where are you going to find this? I mean, if this goes back to the 30s and 40s, let's say, maybe 30s is a bit of an exaggeration, but this is like 40s or 50s, where are you going to find this?
You're right.
You're not.
Right.
You're only going to find it through the miracle of emulation. So I think it's it allows you to enjoy, you know, many different tables, and tables that you necessarily wouldn't find today. Here's one of my all-time favorites, Medieval Madness.
That's very true. And I know that because this is you're right about the reflection, because Revenge from Mars and Star Wars Episode 1 that's the cabinet, right?
Correct.
This is the Star Wars Episode 1.
That's exactly what it is, yeah. They only made 2 of them. They made Star Wars, and then they made the Attack from Mars or Revenge from Mars or something like that. And then that's when they decided to pull the plug, and they killed it. And that was it for pinball. Bally went obviously the way of Williams, because Williams bought out Bally, and then the only one really making pinballs today is Stern. Which Stern, most people will know, but Stern was actually they bought Sega, and even before that used to be Data East. Data East got bought by Sega, and then Stern bought Sega. So they're really the only ones making pinball today. I hate Stern tables. I don't like them. I'm not a pinball expert by any means, but just based on what I enjoy playing, I enjoy a lot of the Williams tables, a lot of the Bally tables, but Stern, no thanks.
And there's Jersey Jack as well. They did Wizard of Oz and The Hobbit, which is coming, which actually, that's one of the games, The Hobbit, that I want to eventually get. But I mean, the price tag's near $8,000 to $9,000, and Jesus,
they're very expensive. Well, the funny thing is, like a Medieval Madness today. I mean, I know that they have reproductions now, for a lot less than the real thing. But a good condition Medieval Madness today will fetch anywhere like up to the $15,000.
Wow!
I don't have that kind of money sitting around. Maybe other people do, but this is a different way to enjoy Medieval Madness. Without spending $14,500. So I love playing it. I'm always trying to beat the high score. Dan kicks my ass every single time. And it's funny because Mike has a Medieval Madness, and I message him all the time. I go, Mikey, I got like 70,000 or 70 million points on it, and he goes, good for you. My highest score is like 300 million. I'm like,
right.
So wow. Very competitive, but yeah.
So that's pretty much the arcade game. Now there's more to the game room itself. I know we checked out the TV. That's for new games. But what about here, Mike? Excuse me, Sergio. What about here? Well, now obviously you have is this like a retro section? What's up with all this?
Well, you know what? I had a little bit of space, and I enjoy a lot of retro gaming, a lot of Super Nintendo, Sega Genesis. That's pretty much what I grew up with in the 80s and 90s, and probably most likely the 16-bit stuff is what I remember the most. So I decided, to grab, an old CRT TV. I mean, they're a dime a dozen. People are giving them away for free all the time. So I decided to pick one up. I bought this 10 on Kijiji for $20, and I just kind of built myself a little retro station. So I have, the PlayStation 2 up here. I've got a Sega Dreamcast down there. One of the greatest Sega consoles of all time.
I agree with you. They're underrated. Yeah, and it died too quickly.
Very underrated. A Nintendo GameCube I picked up next to nothing. And
that's an Xbox as well,
I have
right?
an Xbox that's been modded with all the emulators and all the games. So in my downtime, I come down, I relax, play some old school stuff, when friends are over, and just kind of build myself a little collection here. More to tie kind of into my whole game room thing. The one thing I have to say that I picked up a while ago that I'm pretty proud of is this little guy. And for most people, they may not know what this is. This is basically what's the best way to describe it? I guess it goes back to probably VHS days and before the days of DVD and the laser discs.
Right.
So laser discs back in the 80s were very expensive. They were upwards of $30 to $40 per disc. That may not sound like a lot of money today, but it was back in the 80s. But the cool thing about laser is that number one, the discs are ridiculously big. It's like a record. They're 12-inch, like a 12-inch record. But they hold a lot of special features that DVD and VHS never had. So, for example, I've got a collection of them here that I picked up for really next to nothing a few weeks ago. And I've got the whole entire Star Wars trilogy, and it's the real, George Lucas Star Wars.
Oh, cool!
With scenes never seen on DVD or VHS.
What?
Yes.
Wait a minute here.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, wait. Explain to me again. So if we were watching this, does Han shoot first, or like what's happening?
Well, it's basically the best way to describe it is I'm not a big Star Wars guy, but the best way to describe it is it's basically the pure version of Star Wars.
Nice.
So for the Star Wars fans out there, they know what I'm talking about. There's many different versions of Star Wars. Many of them watered down. This is the real deal. There's a lot of different titles here, and I you know what, Steve? I'll just pull one of.
You got me curious. I thought those were records. I'm like, look at this old man.
No, absolutely not. No, the
Schindler's List. Wow.
Here's this beauty. So here's what a laser disc looks like. But look at the beauty. Look at the artwork in that.
You know what's funny? I used to be in the music industry years ago, and this is the true story. And I'm talking to my younger cousins that are in, like, you know, my second cousins that are 9, 10, and even, you know, my future kids, and even your daughter when she gets older, thing, you know, what do you mean this physical media?
Right.
Well, the difference with records or even, you know, that type of Laserdisc is you weren't just buying music, you're buying the art,
Absolutely.
you're buying the lyrics, you're buying the experience, and that's what's missing, because now no one reads, you know, the lyrics or anything.
right.
They just want the one-hit wonder, and they, oh, yes!
Well, here's Goodfellas.
That's one of my favorite movies. I'm just saying, I think that's even better than Casino.
It is.
I really think, yeah, I agree with you on that.
Here's basically, you know, the size, like you can tell by the size of the discs. Now, you know, the funny thing about this is that, you know, they had to literally place the movie in 2 or 3 discs because, you know, like it
wow,
just,
look at that.
But that's basically a Laserdisc, and believe it or not, Laserdisc had a lot better quality than DVD.
I was just gonna say, what is the quality like?
It's, you know what, consider like an 80s type HD.
Yeah, huh?
Yeah, that's really all it was. Before HD was invented, it was actually very, very clear. I've had a chance to fire up this little guy I picked up for $60. Almost brand new. Pioneer, one of the best brands out there. Made in Japan. They definitely don't make them like they used to anymore. I picked this up for $60. I picked up a whole entire collection that you see here from a neighbor of mine 2 streets over for literally $75.
Wow.
And he told me that the Star Wars collection he picked up years ago cost him $350.
Wow, wow, wow.
So, but, you know, the amazing thing is, like I said, it's the artwork. I mean, you know, here's Terminator.
Oh, now you're pulling out serious titles.
Oh, I mean, like, this is...
Now I'm never going to leave. Well, you lose.
It's awesome.
That's really cool.
Yeah, for sure. You know,
that's
so,
really,
there's
really
a lot
cool.
of other titles in here. Here's a cheesy one for you. Now that we're, you know, just kind of going through the titles. Here's this.
Yes, are you kidding?
New Jack
I love it.
With Wesley Snipes.
I love it.
You know, it's definitely, you know, a little bit of a time capsule. I like having stuff like this around.
I think it's unique. I thought they were records. I'm like, oh, yeah, it's vinyl. Okay.
No, not at all. It's like I said. I never grew up with it, but again, being infatuated with the '80s, I thought that's kind of a cool theme to kind of.
I think it's very, very neat because I know that even like Dragon's Lair or like Space, they needed the Laserdisc, right?
What it was.
Would that work if you were to retrofit it with that?
I'm not quite sure, actually. That's a good question. I mean, I don't know. I know that Dragon's Lair still exists today, as obviously in arcade form and in Laserdisc form, and it's still going strong. So, yeah, it's incredible. I actually watched Jurassic Park a couple of weeks ago, and I was surprised at the quality. I was like, holy cow.
Wow.
Like, this is awesome, you know? So, I mean, it's awesome. It's awesome back to, it's, you know, when it came out, you know, today we're so spoiled by Blu-ray that nothing really beats Blu-ray.
Right.
So, but it's
for now, anyways. You're right.
Yeah.
And then what about this? Like this is just '80s more nostalgia. I know. I see Knight Rider. I see Kip.
I'm a huge Hoff fan. I'm a huge Knight Rider fan. My first ever car I ever bought with my hard-earned money was a 1984 Trans Am.
Get out of here, really?
Black with T-tops. Was the biggest piece of shit ever. But I converted it into, you know, with the black taillights at the back, and I just tried to make it into a Knight Rider car, you know, as silly as that may sound. So it kind of stuck with me. But, yeah, this is kind of a little, you know... A
little showcase.
Yeah, exactly.
I like it. I like it. Street Fighter characters, I see that.
You know, so...
History of video games...
Greatest, Steve. I gotta recommend that. You know, as a read for you or anybody. You know,
this book you mean, The Ultimate History? You mean?
It's phenomenal.
Really?
Yes, my wife bought it for me 3 years ago for Christmas, and I was literally glued to the couch every single night.
Really?
Reading the book. It really talks about everything from the old Atari days to modern gaming and everything in between, and it's some of the most nostalgic, you know, stuff that you'll ever read. I mean, it's
really.
Yeah, I recommend it to anybody.
Good to know.
Yeah.
Hey, what's obviously being Canadian? I guess we have to have something hockey. I guess is that it?
Yeah, well, you know what's funny? I got this guy mainly because there's a lot of people that don't like what they call foosball. I call it Chitoni, obviously.
They're jits, yeah. Like I remember that's the way it used to be.
So I ended up getting this little guy. I picked it up for a couple $100. It's pretty cool. It turns on if you come around here. Like you'll see that you fire up the. There it is, so it's a bit cheesy. Like it doesn't have like the checks.
Yeah, the checks, the bubble dome.
But
yeah.
You know what? It still plays music and it has a timer. And for those people that don't really want to play jits, this kind of falls within their realm, if you will. So I got it mostly just for others. I really don't play it. So
I can see younger kids playing this.
Yeah,
is that it? I don't know.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's fair to say.
Yes. Now, an actual jits table. This is. I mean, I remember when my dad, other than a pool table, my dad, I remember all the coffee shops used to take me. There's always. To be honest, I'm not a fan. Yeah. My wife likes it, and she's good. All of a sudden, I'm like, what? Oh, what the hell do you come into this? But, well, tell me that you told me a funny story about this. What's the story in this one?
This guy was actually, I was looking for one because I wanted to add one to the game room, and my friends kept saying, Serge, why don't you add a Chitoni table? And
I know, we're European, I know.
Yeah, exactly, right? Where am I going to find a Chitoni table? So, the gentleman who sold me the Cruising USA and the Neo Geo Henry, I had his number. So I texted him, I said, hey, Henry, do you have any Chitoni tables by any chance? And he goes, oh, it's your lucky day. And I said, oh, yeah, it's always my lucky day. The story of my life, right? He goes, no, seriously, I have one. I'll send you a picture. So he sends me a picture, and I'm like, is that a commercial unit? And he goes, yeah, I just bought some guy in Sudbury or something, and I have a whole bunch of shit I have to get rid of, because the wife wants me to sell the place. So I'm trying to get rid of it. It's got a glass top. It's in good condition. I can deliver it for you. I said, well, how much do you want for it? He says, well, $250. You know what, just leave it in an envelope, I'll go to your house, leave it in the garage, and off you go. So, he was actually thankful that I was buying it, because he goes, you don't know how much of a favor you're doing me, right? And I'm like, well, no, I'm doing, I think you're doing me a favor.
Right.
He goes, no, you don't understand, this is a huge favor, thank you very much for buying it. So, I cleaned it up, I got it downstairs, it weighs a ton.
Does it? Because it looks commercial, it looks heavy-duty.
So me and my friend killed ourselves, bringing this thing, only to realize that we could have opened up the machine, taken off the latches, and we could have got it in 2 pieces. Well, live and learn. So it sits here, nothing special about it. It still has, the coin-operated chute on it, so you put $1 in.
Does it still work?
Yes,
Let me go around.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
I don't know about that, no smoke inside, damn it. Damn it! Am I the last smoker? Am I the last cigar smoker here?
So, you put $1 in there, and then you just basically...
Boom, boom. Just like the old... Would you ever consider getting a pool table if you had the room?
You know what? My wife wants a pool table. I'm not really much of a pool guy.
Really?
Yeah, I never really... I find the sport boring, right? But that's just me. But I may be forced to get one if the wife, wants one. But, yeah, no, it's really neat. I mean, it gets a lot of play, especially when you get 2-on-2.
Yeah.
And it gets very competitive, and, I suck at it, but, hey, that's part of the fun, right?
No, that's true. What about these because I do want eventually these candy machines. What happened? Did a Walmart go out of business or Zeller or what?
Well, these
because that's what you wait for, right?
Yeah, well, these guys here, I never really thought about, owning. It just kind of popped up. I hooked up with a guy in Whitby, actually, through one of the arcade forums as well. And he sends me a picture one day. He goes, hey, check out my beavers. And I'm like, check out your beaver. I'm like, what's going on here, right? So, he said, no, man, the beaver candy machines. I'm like, what is this guy talking about? So anyway, long story short, we ended up hooking up, and he had a source for these. I picked them up literally next to nothing. I bought some candy, filled it up. I actually had 2 sets, but, my friend Mike, who sold me the pinball machine, says, well, as part of one of your candy machines, I'm like, really? I don't want to part ways with it, but he
for the greater good.
Yeah, I know it was because I'm enjoying the pinball. So, I kept it to basically these are set on free candies.
How does that work? Actually, I was thinking that. How does that work? Do you just break the mecha? How does it work?
Yeah, well, once you rip all this apart, right? So you loosen the key. Okay, here's the key. You loosen this nut, and then basically this whole thing slides out, and then this pops out. There's a mechanism on the inside with 2 screws that you have to remove in order to take the coin feature on it. So I took these 2 out. This one here I kept original. So if you want a little toy car, you must pay me 25 cents.
Yeah, well, that's cool. That's cool.
But that's kind of like the little thing behind it. It kind of adds a little bit of a...
I love it. I want to do that actually to mine.
Thank you.
I love that.
I got a lot of opinion, a lot of good opinions, a lot of good feedback on it.
I think it's amazing.
Man, it's funny because I messaged Mike the other day and said, hey, listen, can I buy my beavers back? He goes, no. I'm like,
I love it.
So I gotta wait now until I get them back. But I did get my Street Fighter Shinobi back, so chances are my beavers will come back again for me one day. And
when was the last time how long did they last there? Let's for like did they become stale? Like I don't know, I'm just...
You know what, Steve? I from what I remember the guy telling me, like, if you keep it in a warm environment, yes. If you keep it in a cool environment, like in the basement, they won't go stale.
Really, huh?
Yeah, you can have some Smarties now or some Skittles here, and they'll be as good.
Oh, I will. Don't worry.
I actually had chocolate M&Ms, and of course those disappeared very quickly.
Yeah.
And it's quite expensive. It cost me almost $100 to fill this guy.
What?
Yeah.
You know what? Even if you go to like the bulk, bulk store, really?
Yes, they're very expensive.
I've never thought about that. Even with the nuts, I remember my dad always getting, almonds and cashews and whatever.
They're expensive, but you know what? Like I said, a cool little addition, and it kind of sets the game room, off. And yeah, that's about it. I mean, again, nothing special. It's just a lot of hard work, a lot of time and effort, and in the hobby, and a lot of it due to the wonderful people that you get to meet along the way.
I agree.
Yourself and many others, right? So, yeah, that's about it.
Cool, man. So that's pretty much Sergio's game room, or empty pockets, or whatever. If you want to officially call it that, I got dibs on that. But no, you know what? Everything else is beautiful. Again, a quick pan about the game room. Who knows what's ever going to show up. Wow, this Laserdisc thing really got me scratching my head here.
Thank you.
Huh. Now I got like Star Wars people email me, one thanks. But you know what, that's great. I mean, and again, I know you said you have a lot of parts as well, but maybe, I don't know if you want to get into that. It's just dumpster stuff.
Oh, it's just all my junk stuff that's all in the corner there. I mean, I've become a bit of a hog because I think in this hobby, you become very paranoid very quickly because you start to think,
what if?
What if?
What if?
What if something breaks and I'm not going to have the parts to fix it? I'm not going to find this machine again. So you start hoarding parts like a madman, only to realize later on in life that, I don't really need to hoard these parts because with machines, they're very simple. There's only 3 things that can go wrong. It's a monitor, it's a game board, or it's a power supply.
Yeah, it's true.
That's all it is. So sometimes you're hoarding parts for no reason at all. But, I guess that's part of the fun, I suppose.
No, I know what you're saying. All right, so if anything, I know that we'll cut away later on that you have a game in the garage that you just picked up, which is very interesting. We'll wait to get to that a little later on, but why don't we just play some games, hang out, and we'll pretty much wrap up the video once we do the one in the garage.
Sounds good.
All right, Serge.
All
right, everyone. So we're back in the garage here with Serge. So this is pretty much the latest pickup that we're talking about. So Serge pretty much just got a new game a few days ago. And pretty much tell us about it, Serge. This is very interesting.
It is. This one's a little bit obviously different than what some of you have seen downstairs. It's what a cabinet looks like when it's been stripped completely of its components. So this machine here, the purpose of this machine here is I've been wanting to build a main driver for a very long time. So essentially what you saw downstairs with the Mortal Kombat and the Street Fighter, but that's going to run a lot of the older driving games. But I also run the Sega M2 and M3 emulator that runs Daytona USA, Sega Rally, like some of you know. And then my plan is to also add the Outrun Coast to Coast 2006, which is one of my favorite driving games. And really kind of add the Cruising USAs and have the best of all worlds, I guess, with one driving cabinet. So it's going to have a 6-speed, gear shift, clutch, brake, pedal. Force feedback steering wheel, so it's quite the project, but I'm looking forward to it. Quick little story about this cabinet. I picked it up for a couple $100 from a gentleman up in Aurelia the other night. It was kind of funny, and in some sense, I ended up going to pick it up with one of my co-workers in the company vehicle as well, because it wouldn't fit in my SUV. And I get there, and after dismantling the cabinets, for the most part, we found out that the base didn't come apart as easily as we thought. So for once in my arcades, I guess, you know, hobby, I guess, timeline, whatever you want to call it, I had to leave a machine behind. Something I've never done before. I felt really bad for the individual, but I told him I just can't fit it in the van. It's not going to fit in the basement, and I have to leave it behind. So I left, you know, a couple of bucks for the guy, you know, as compensation, obviously, for his time. And then not even half an hour into the trip back home, he sends me a text message with 2 pictures, and he says I took it apart. All it was staples and some glue, and a little bit of a pry bar, you know, a little bit of force. So ended up driving all the way back, putting everything in the van, and it was a pretty late night. You know, we got home about almost, you know, 11 o'clock. But it was funny because coming down, you know, I've never seen this before. I saw a bum wearing a raincoat and eating a bag of potato chips along the side of the highway, something I've never seen before. So it was almost well worth it just for entertainment purposes, I guess. So I got it home, but I had the unfortunate part of, you know, being late at night and being tired as I went to unload it. Steve, I don't know if you can catch it here, but
I should be able to, yeah.
The bottom base basically broke on both sides, and these are the supports that literally hold the base of the cabinet together. So, not a big deal. I've got a good hookup that knows how to fix these sort of things. Woodworking is obviously his, you know, his main line of work. So he's going to do a bit of touch up for me and a few other things. So I'm not really worried about that. But yeah, that's pretty much about it. I'm looking forward to it. Again, looking back at it now, I probably would have chosen another cabinet design. Again, I'm not a fan of Atari, some of you may know. But there's just something about this cabinet, like the whole green shroud here, as you can see, has kind of a you know, kind of a sinister look to it, I guess, if you will. It's something a little bit different. And this particular cabinet reminds me of hard driving. I don't know if most of you are familiar with Atari's first ever driving simulator called Hard Driving. Probably one of the shittiest games you'll ever play.
I remember that. I remember that.
But for its time, it was well advanced, you know. So this kind of reminds me, the cabinet shape reminds me of Hard Driving. That's what I was trying to go for. So I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be a lot of work. There's no doubt. There's a lot of retrofitting here. The software is going to be a problem, I know. There's going to be obviously a lot of you know, tinkering. But this is more of a winter project, you know. I like having something on the go in the winter. I'm not a winter guy. I don't like being outdoors. I don't like the cold. So being in the comfort of my basement, you know, with the heat going and just working on this every night after work, for me, it's a big stress reliever. So looking forward to it. You know, see, maybe one day, you know, you can revisit again, and I'll have this guy up and running, and well, yeah.
That makes sense. Now, you did show us here. Now, you did mention that you're going to actually have... Yeah. So what... This is like a computer one, is it not? It is. So basically, this is the Logitech G25. It's got basically force feedback. It's leather wrapped, just like the real thing. It's got paddle shifters as well. Cool. You know, for those type of games like Formula 1, that sort of thing. So as you see here, as I take it around, you can see it doesn't really mount. Obviously, it's not a direct bolt-on. But what I'm planning on doing is having these 2 sections here cut, but with the main bracket at the bottom remaining, and then supporting basically, or putting a piece of wood where these 2 brackets lie, and then resting the steering wheel on top. Because the steering wheel has obviously these clamp systems at the bottom, and you know, you can adjust it to pretty much any thickness wood. So it'll give you really a solid mount. And once it's hidden in behind the shroud, you won't see it. It looks like stock. So... And it also has a gear shifter, does it not? It does, it does. It also has a gear shifter. So here's a stock gear shifter that came with San Francisco Rush. There's the piece of shit, you know, square 4-speed shifter. Good going, Atari. And here's the 6-speed gear shifter. It's got 1, 2... 3, 4, 5, 6, and then reverse. You click down like the Volkswagens and then back. Actually, Volkswagens is, you know, push down and then forward. But very realistic. It feels like, you know, the real thing. Again, we're going to have to build a base to mount the shifter.
Good thing is the gentleman that's actually fixing the bottoms for me, he's got a friend that works in sheet metal, and he's going to fabricate a special console, I guess if you will, to mount the shifter to. So I'm kind of looking forward to that. And then last but not least, here's the pedals. So the pedals are all, you know, they're almost like pressure sensitive, if you will, so it really feels like you're driving a real car, like, you know, clutch wise. Almost feels like, you know, the clutch on my Eagle Talon turbo I had many years ago, an ACT 2600, very, very heavy. Give me a workout. The pedal, again, very stiff, and then the gas pedal, obviously, is the gas pedal. But what I'm going to do is there's a couple of good links on YouTube of people who've done this in the past, and they've decased the pedals. They've taken the shroud off, and they've actually mounted the pedals like the real thing in place of these guys. That's cool. So I'm going to take that off. I'm going to replace that with some wood, and I'm going to, you know, basically mount these as you typically, you know, would in a real vehicle. So kind of giving it that real feel, right? And I think that pretty much, you know, will achieve or you know, what I'm trying to accomplish, I suppose. A lot of people ask me, you know, why not use the real arcade controls? You can. Ultimart.com sells a beautiful device called the UHID, which allows you to plug in all these devices, you know, the stock steering wheel and the pedals and the shifter and all that, and it's all configured through software. I don't know. I'm more of like a plug-and-play kind of guy. Not that that's plug-and-play, because it's not. There's still a lot of work involved. But, you know, what you're dealing with force feedback motors of 1996 that's been abused by kids, and, you know, gum stuck to it, and Pepsi and Coke stuck to it, and God knows if it works, and I'm not going to bother. So I think this simplifies the process, and hopefully it all comes together when it's done. So ideally you have a MAME for the arcade, a MAME for the pinball, and a MAME now for racing, which but the pinball and racing never knew existed, so I've just learned something. Yeah. I hope you guys are learning as well, because I had no idea. I really had no idea that existed. Yeah. That's interesting. That's actually very interesting. Yeah, and that's... and this will take me pretty much, like I said, until the winter months. It's going to be a long-term project for sure. So, you know, again, with these things, it's a lot of trial and error. It's a lot of retrofitting. It's not going to be plug and play. But I think, you know, when it's done, I think it's going to look special. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to the overall result. And I know really quick, you did say that you had a story about the old arcade, because you're saying that you had an old arcade, and what was it called again? Well, it's called Pockets Arcade, and again, I think that's, you know, for some of the viewers that may be wondering where Empty Pockets came from. Well, Empty Pockets Arcade came from literally being broke from buying these things, and being broke from fixing them, and then being broke, you know, not being able to play them because you ain't got no money. So, although you can set them to free play. So as I was saying, so the whole thing behind the Pockets Arcade obviously stemmed from my old arcade hangouts in my local high school back in the early 90s, which was Pockets. So Pockets was run by a gentleman named Pops, a very nice gentleman. He must have been in his 70s at the time. Very, very nice. Cranky at times, of course, like any old man, if you will. But I had a lot of fond memories playing in that arcade. And I remember one day coming down with my friends. Now, I attended Bishop Morocco High School, which is located at Bloor and Dundas. So the Pockets Arcade was located on Bloor Street between Dundas and Keele. So every day at the same time, at lunchtime, we went down, we played, you know, Street Fighter, Mortal Kombat, and all these other, you know, wonderful games they had at the time. And I'll never forget, one day we're walking, we get to the arcade and the door was locked. And we stood around for about 15-20 minutes kind of waiting, and we thought that something had happened to Pops, and we were getting worried because, you know, like, he's a 70-something-year-old man, you never know. So we waited and waited, and finally myself and a couple of friends ended up going to a travel agency right next door to it. And we asked the lady, like, what happened to Pops? Like, do you know anything? The arcade is closed. And she was, well, I hate to tell you this, but the arcade is going to be closed. It's closed, and it's going to be closed forever. And we're like, wow, what, did something happen to Pops? No, we decided to buy the place, and we're going to turn it into an underground parking lot. Well, we weren't very happy, so needless to say, a few of my friends and myself, we walked down to the local 7-Eleven. We all marched to the back of the facility. we opened up the refrigerator door and we bought all the eggs that they had, all the egg cartons. So we walked up to the cash, we paid for them, and the guy asked us, what you plan on doing with all these eggs? And me, being the smart ass, you know, teenager, what do you think we're doing, dummy? We're going to cooking class, teach us to buy, you know, the eggs. Like, what do you want from us, right? So we paid for these things, and we walked up the street, and we all lined up right across from the arcade, and each of us took a carton of eggs, and we opened fire.
I love it.
And I've never seen, you know, a more puzzled and shocked look on the travel agency ladies' faces. It was priceless. The whole place was clobbered in egg yolk. and I'll never forget, we all ran and said, that's what you get for closing Pops down.
I love it.
And to today, you know, I still remember, you know, the you know, that memory like it was yesterday. And I drive by once in a while, and you know, I drive right by the place. I still know where it is today. The travel agency is no longer there, by the way.
Good.
Thanks a lot, dicks.
Good.
But you know, I still have fond memories, and you know, like again, I remember like it was yesterday. And I think even after all these years and driving down and still remembering, you know, it really resembles of what the hobby's all about. You know, sometimes it's not about the machine itself. It's about playing that particular game and the memories and the friends that you've met, you know, along the way, or you met back then. And these are all memories that you always treasure, you know, and you'll have forever, you know, as long as you live. So, again, I think it's something that the younger generation doesn't understand, sitting behind a screen playing Xbox. And I hope through videos like this and individuals like Steve, like Top Tier Arcade, you know, that this will educate the younger generation to make them understand where these new games they play come from, and what started it all, you know. So it was a special time when arcades were around. It's too bad we don't have them anymore, and you know, again, it's through people like us that'll keep the hobby going for, you know, for hopefully for a very, very long time. So yeah, that's about it. That's yeah, that does it for me.
And I thank you, Sergio. You know what? You've been nothing but a gentleman. I can't believe. No, are you kidding? I can't believe that. You know, finding such a niche hobby that we find someone or ourselves, you know, helping each other and overall just preserving the hobby. And you're really right. I mean, do I know as much as you know and all this and that? No. Did I learn a lot today? I hope you guys did as well. Did I know that, you know, a driver can be maimed? No. Did I know a pinball can be maimed? No. Very much no. And I saw a lot of gems I've never even heard of, I hate to say. And, you know, that you've educated me. Now, guys, I wish you were all here. We had great conversations. I mean, I arrived at around 11. It's almost 9 o'clock. I've been here all day. We pretty much put Sergio's baby to sleep, talking about arcade. He got that bored. Even his wife is getting to sleep. So I think I've overstayed my welcome for this time. Again, we can go on forever. We're going to wrap it up. Sergio, again, thank you so much for having me. I mean, it's like an absolute pleasure. And again, we'll hope to see you soon, especially we'll check this out and how this ever comes to be, because this got me very intrigued. Absolutely. And, you know, we'll see you shortly.